So, good afternoon or good morning or good evening to everybody. What I would like to do is to have with you for the next 45 minutes a short, quick and serious look at the impact of the virus of COVID-19 on leaders, public and private leaders, the impact that it has on leadership by and large. So what I'm going to do is to share with you some ideas about what I think is going to happen or what's already happening actually in the world today, in many parts of the world, and how serious the situation is, not only from a leadership perspective, but from other perspectives too, social, political, and economical. So I'm going to have a presentation in three parts, basically. As you're going to see, I'm going to focus basically on three major issues and challenges that we are facing, and what does it mean for you or for us leaders. So yes, there is no question that we are facing a turnaround situation that is so serious that we can indeed, and I hope that you all agree with me, we can call it a crisis. So we are facing a crisis. It's a major event that a virus, COVID-19, it's around. It was totally unexpected, quote unquote. If we go back to the famous book by N.N.Taleb, Black Swan, some people claim that it's a black swan. The black swan being basically something totally unexpected that suddenly we human beings, men and women and leaders, are facing. And we are taken by surprise. Well, according to Taleb and according to many experts in the field, no, this is not a black swan. Read the book, it's not a black swan. It was expected. We should have been ready for it. Some people gave some strong signals, flagging the thing to everybody, but it seemed that many people, including many leaders, well, we're not listening. I strongly recommend you to look at Bill Gates' TED presentations on April 3rd, 2015, TED presentation by Bill Gates. In 2015, that's when Bill Gates said, we are going to have what we have today. So it was not unexpected. It's not a black swan. So we have to keep that in mind, that we should have been in a way ready. And that's what we're going to explore in this session. By the way, yes, it's a crisis, but it's not the first time that we are experiencing that crisis or a crisis of that time. It's not the first time, and hopefully it's not going to be the last time. If we have the proper leadership, the right leadership, and I'm going to define what I mean by right leadership, we can turn, there is no question that we can turn this crisis, very, very serious crisis, into an opportunity to reinvent ourselves. And the main presentation this afternoon or today is going to be around that idea. What kind of leadership do we need, not just to get out of the crisis, but to turn it into something good for us, human beings, all over the world. If we don't have the proper leadership around, what we're going to face is not just like in the past, regression, and it happened in the past. I'm used to use the following illustration. Take Middle Age, Europe in the Middle Age, it was more or less 5 centuries of regression, going back instead of improving, instead of building on what the people before had done, had invented, and had used. So it's regression. Unfortunately, we've reached a point in the evolution of the species, of humankind, when we are facing what we are facing today is not, I'm sorry, is not regression. The bad news is annihilation, that we will disappear. We're getting, following Bill Gates, building on Bill Gates' presentation, we are basically getting a fair chance right now to really change ourselves in a kind of a dramatic way. And that's what I'm going to explore in this session. Basically, so here we go. Let me summarize. We are facing a major crisis. Bill Gates talked about it in 2015. It's not the first time, hopefully not the last time. What we need is some kind of new leadership. So we have to reinvent ourselves and reinvent leadership, all right? And, well, if we don't face it, if we don't have the proper leadership around, then what we face is worse than regression. I recommend the book by Paul Jorio, The Last One to Leave, Switch Off the Light. Please, The Last One to Leave, Switch Off the Light. It's really dramatic. Read it. Here we go. The right leadership, let me build on that. The right leadership. What do I mean by that? Well, it seems that leaders today are facing three major challenges. And let me present them one by one. The first one is, there is no question that the situation that we're facing is unclear, full of contradictions, and full of paradoxes. In other words, or to use one word, we are facing some strong ambiguity in swallowing the virus right now. The virus has triggered some kind of uncertainty for all of us on this planet, Earth. That's the first challenge, ambiguity. So I'm going to look at it in a few minutes. Let's face it, most leaders are lost. And it leads to an extreme point of question. How do you lead other people when you don't even know what the problem is and when you have no clue of what you could do to improve, to get out of the dramatic situation that we are all facing? And I'm not getting over dramatic. I'm just saying it's serious. And it's a signal, a very strong signal that we're getting, and we should pay attention to that signal. I have a feeling, watching people around, that many people in many countries, I think, don't take it seriously or seriously enough. So point one, ambiguity. Point number two, confusion among the leaders. Many leaders are just lost. They don't know what to do. Welcome to the club. And the third challenge is many changes are happening at the same time. Many, as I'm going to elaborate later on with some illustration, many changes are occurring at the same time and very fast. And there is a kind of overload, an overload of changes. And I think that many leaders, most leaders actually, we're not quite ready for that. Let me summarize. Three major challenges, more than three, but three major challenges that we have to keep an eye on. Uncertainty, ambiguity, and uncertainty. We're lost. Confusion, don't know what to do. All right, what we learned yesterday is not quite appropriate anymore. And I'll talk about that later on. And we know that the past has some very strong and very interesting experiences, but as somebody said, I don't think that the past can teach us anything today. What was good for the past is not necessarily good for the challenges that we're facing today. And the overload in the sense that many changes are happening at the same time and very fast. And it's too much. Next, before I start with ambiguity, what I would like to do, if you don't mind, is to give you a little quiz. For all the people who are watching and listening, I would like to give you an opportunity to, well, to reflect on yourself. All right, so what I'm going to do, it's a little quiz. I'm going to, before explaining or building or clarifying rather what ambiguity and uncertainty, all right, is all about, let me ask you to go through a little quiz. All right. I hope that you have a pencil or you have a pen and a piece of paper, and it's going to be very easy. What I'm going to do is just answer by yes or no. Okay, the following question. Quickly, don't think too much. I'm just going to one item at a time. There will be 10 items, all right? And basically, I'm asking you to, without thinking too much, to answer by yes or no. Here we go. Do you perceive yourself as someone who is flexible? You perceive yourself as a man or woman who is very flexible, who can adjust to different situations quite quickly? Yes? No. 2, do you perceive yourself as someone who enjoys what is strange and different? What is strange and different? Something that we're not used to. Yes or no? 3, do you perceive yourself as someone who likes to try out new things, or you love it when it's new? You like to try out new things. 4, explores and discovers on his or her own. You like to go first. You like to really explore and basically discover things on your own. You take the initiatives in a way. 5, you're ready, someone who's ready to be first one to try out something. Nobody thinks about it. Nobody thinks about trying it out, or nobody is ready to try out that thing. You are ready. You are ready to be the first one. 6, someone or somebody who values change very much. You hate routine. You don't like, the steady thing or steady events in your life or in your job or whatever. 7, someone who believes in the power and use of artificial intelligence, the new algorithm, the new thing that we have invented and which are around in quite a very powerful way today. 8, somebody who's not afraid of being lost. It's okay to be lost. Actually, to be lost is maybe an opportunity to do something new. Yes or no? 9, somebody takes risk sometimes just for the sake of it. You enjoy taking a risk. You're not sure that it's going to work. You're not sure that you're going to be successful, but you will take the risk. And hopefully it's a calculated risk. Not sure about that one. Yes or no? Finally, 10, somebody who challenges status quo. Yes, we have been the same way. We have been acting the same for so long now. Or it's getting boring. It's time to change. So 10 items, and you had to answer yes or no for each item. Ready? Now, let me give you the debriefing. The debriefing. Keep in mind that this is not a test. This is a kind of a self-reflection exercise. I'm using this as an introduction to leadership and ambiguity, leadership and uncertainty, turning ambiguity and uncertainty into opportunity. So self-reflection exercise, not a test. Here we go with the debriefing. If you got between 7 and 10 yes, this is a high score. And your high score could indicate that you're already enjoying uncertainty of the time. You see it as an opportunity to take initiative and have an impact. Be careful though. Be careful not to distance yourself too much from people who are not maybe so eager, all right, to embrace ambiguity as much as you do. You could isolate yourself if you really are so open to the idea of trying something new, exploring, discovering, and basically creating ambiguity around yourself. If you got between 4 and 6 yes, you are enjoying parts of the open situation you're facing, no question about that. But you maybe have some reservation, or maybe even problems with the environment that is loaded with fast and unexpected changes. Maybe the bottom line is that maybe you do not like to lose control, perhaps. See that you can do, right, to improve. Basically challenge, or go back rather, to your no and transform the no into a yes, which could be an opportunity for you, to grow from the experience. Some reservation, but you're open to maybe change a few things. Finally, if you got between 1 and 3 yes, well, maybe, let's face it, you do not belong to the world in the making. And you're going to have to adjust yourself and learn how to survive. And maybe better contribute to the turn situation that you're part of. Well, enjoy the surprises. Or maybe just take it easy and, you know, retire. Well, I'm a bit provocative here, but what I'm saying is for the score between 1 and 3, you should maybe ask yourself a question. Are you ready for this world? And what should you do to make sure you're not going to suffer too much, all right, of the ambiguity and the uncertainty? Ready? So let me debrief now ambiguity. Let me present to you a piece of research, a very good one, a serious one, on what is ambiguity actually. And this is important for leaders because that's maybe the bottom line. What I claim is that leaders today have to understand everybody around in the world, everybody is experiencing ambiguity and uncertainty. Many people are lost, and better to know from research what it leads to, that uncertainty. So let me first present it. Ambiguity is, we experience ambiguity when we don't understand what's going on. Well, that's what COVID-19 is doing to us. We experience ambiguity when the situation we're in is full of contradiction, paradoxes, and so on. That's ambiguity. Uncertainty is basically ambiguity in the longer term. So that's what ambiguity is about. Now, let me present briefly to you the model or the research on ambiguity. And I'm going to go one point at a time. It's a very simple model. I'm not going to put it on the screen. It's very simple, and here we go. Number 1, keep in mind that ambiguity and uncertainty leads to something that we call basically tension. There is tension when we're lost, when we don't know what's happening, when we don't know why it's happening, and when we don't know what to do with what's happening, there is tension. Now, let's fine-tune a bit this. And what's interesting is to realize that sometimes tension is not necessarily bad. Tension can be negative if it's destructive, but tension, it can be also good. How can we survive? How can we live? How can we reinvent ourselves if we don't have that kind of tension, that kind of energy in ourselves to move on? Next, if we try something, and we've been trying with COVID-19 in many parts of the world, we've been trying, and sometimes it's not working or not working the way we expected, that kind of virus is escaping from our understanding, and therefore that leads to frustration. Now, again, some people can cope with that frustration very easily. Some people are lost with that frustration. They fall into deep frustration and they lose their ability to react. Keep that in mind. Tension, frustration. Some people, again, when they're lost, the frustration is a kind of a kick that they get to do something. That kick is giving them an opportunity to make a move. And now we reach the major part of the research. What kind of behavior do we see around when men and women, when people are experiencing ambiguity and uncertainty, when they're lost? To put it simply, when they're lost, we don't understand what's going on, we don't know what to do, and it can be deadly. There are, according to research, 3 major behaviors, 3 major ways to cope with a situation. Let me describe them quickly. Positive and negative. One is to withdraw. One situation, or one behavior rather, that we can activate is withdrawing. I don't understand, therefore I'm going to step back, I'm going to have a look at the situation from outside. That's what some researchers are doing in many medical centers, health centers. They're taking back, they're stepping back to have a better look at what the virus is and what the implications are and what we could do to control that virus. So withdrawing is not a bad thing. The negative side is you withdraw if leaders or people withdraw, and it's also an option that we have, which is negative, is to withdraw without trying to understand. And I can see walking around, I see people who are just saying, it's okay. You see, tomorrow, nothing is going to change. Tomorrow will be the same as 5 years ago, as yesterday. They are basically not withdrawing, they're fleeing. They don't want to face the problem, and that's very dangerous. Positive, withdrawing, putting things into perspective. Negative, fleeing, not trying to understand what situation is and the implication of that very, very bad situation. Second behavior. The second behavior is taking initiatives. Some people are taking the opportunity of the ambiguity, the uncertainty as an open door. All right, the door is open. Let me go and try something. And some people with imagination and creativity are going to take initiative and basically try out different things, including a treatment, finding out a treatment, and a vaccine. There is also something negative that some people go too far with taking initiative, and they believe that they have the truth, and they believe that what they think is right, and they become pushy and even worse, aggressive. So here we are withdrawing, positive, or taking initiative, positive. There's the third alternative, which is to analyze. And yes, obviously, with what we're facing, what leaders are facing today, with the health problem that we have, analyzing is absolutely critical. We have to analyze. We have to understand how can we solve the problem if we don't understand what it is all about. The problem with that one, is that it can be also negative in the sense that it can lead to analysis paralysis. If you go for too long analyzing the problem, then when you have the solution, we'll be all dead. So that's not necessarily very good. Let me summarize a very powerful model on ambiguity and uncertainty. It leads to being lost, not understanding a situation, and having a kind of living in a kind of threatening environment because of the virus, COVID-19. We have tension, we have frustration, we have good behaviors, people are taking initiatives, people are basically also withdrawing to have a better understanding of the situation. Some people will use their brains and their research to understand, analyze, and understand, but there is also, let's keep that in mind, some kind of negative side of the ambiguity. So the key learning, as you can see, the key learning is, as leaders, we have to, number one, be aware of the fact that the situation is very serious. Number two, keep in mind as leaders that crisis that we're facing, ambiguity and uncertainty, have basically, is going to trigger tension and frustration among human beings. And therefore, we should be ready for the positive and the negative behaviors that people are going to use. That's what, in a nutshell, that's what I would like to share with you in terms of COVID-19, all right, and the uncertainty and the ambiguity that it leads to. Let's move on now. And let's move to the second challenge. But before I present the second challenge, I have another little quiz for you. A little quiz for you, and here we go, very simple. And I still hope that you have your little pen and paper, piece of paper. Here we go. Which leadership style should you use? Pick one of the three presented hereunder. Here is a situation. It's a kind of a critical incident in line with what we're experiencing right now. COVID-19 is around and spreading very fast with ups and downs. And we don't know if it's down for sure or if it's just something that is going to come back in a maybe stronger way later on. It was totally unexpected. And let's face it, most leaders are taken by surprise. Actually, it should have been expected, but it was not. And therefore, most leaders, public and private sectors, are taken by surprise. The situation is quite dramatic. And you know, as let's say public leader, let's say that you're a public leader, that you must act right away to avoid Well, to avoid a major panic around you. If people see that their leaders are not quite on top of things, they could panic. So here are three options, three preferences, and I would like to ask you to pick the one that you think is the best. Not necessarily what you would do, what you think is the best out of the three that I'm going to present right now. You know what the situation is, right? And here we go. Option one, you send a song, you're the leader, you send a strong signal that you're in charge and that things are under control. Your main motivation here is to reassure people. You know what's happening, you're working on it, and things are going to be all right. That's option one. Option two, you delegate the power to act to those who know more and better. For example, in this case, the scientist. You say, no, I'm lost here, this is not my field, I'm not an expert, I'm a leader but not an expert, and therefore I'm going to delegate the power to those who have a better understanding or better grasp of what the virus is all about and what we could do. Option three, show to everybody that you're managing the process, how to face the crisis, and empower the expert to solve the problem. So you show to everybody that I'm in charge, but I'm not going to solve the problem because I don't know what the problem is and I don't know what the solutions are. But they are experts, and I'm going to empower the expert to solve the problem. Can you please now, let's try, let's try to have a kind of a voting thing here. I would like to know how many people are going to pick one, how many people are going to pick two, how many people are going to pick three. Just quickly, right, to have a good idea of they do. That's very interesting, very, very interesting. All right, so I can see that 87% of the people have picked up, I guess, three. Yes. I see that nobody picked up number two. Very interesting. Let me debrief this, if you don't mind. Let me debrief this now, all right? And let's move on. I'm quite impressed. Why? Here we go, all right? So you picked up, let me see now. My presentation is a bit stuck here. Here we go, confusion. That's it, thank you. Here we go. Well, I think you're right. I think you're right, and by that I mean that, you know, in a crisis time, my research on leadership is telling me that in a crisis time, what you do as a leader, you take over. You take over, that's what leaders are around for. There's a crisis, there's a problem, there's a confrontation, all right, and the building is on fire, and we're not going to have a long discussion to decide on who did it, where did it start, and what we should do now. So obviously, that's what leaders should do. The problem is that, how can you do that when you don't know, when you're lost, when you are in the fog as other people are? You don't know what the problem is, you don't know what the solution is. How can you take over then and move? You cannot do it. Therefore, you were absolutely right by picking up solution 3, at least according to me. We are not, my friends, we are not in an either or world anymore. It's quite clear, and we have the confirmation that we are now in an either and world. Therefore, it's not, you know, that you do it and other people are doing it. No, you do it with other people. So the solution 3, option 3 is absolutely right. In other words, you split. You keep the power as a leader, the power to manage the process, but you empower the experts, the people who know more about the field than you do, and they look at and they work on the content, the problem and the solution. So the leader is in charge of the process, and the experts are in charge of the problem and the solution to the problem. I think that's exactly what we have to do. At least that's what my research is telling me. And I frankly believe that that's what we're going to see in many organizations in the future, that kind of transfer of power. There will be more and more leaders in charge of the process, and more people, men and women, with good brains, with good ideas, in charge of the content, in charge of the opportunities, in charge of the problems. Let's move now, if you don't mind, let's move to the challenge number 3. Remember, challenge number 1 was ambiguity. Challenge number 2 is confusion, right? Challenge number 3 is, well, is the overload. The overload, and here we go. Let me very briefly highlight some of the major changes that we are already experiencing, and more so, I believe, tomorrow. And whatever your leadership position is, better to be ready for that. Too many changes happening at the same time, yes, and very fast. Unexpected, yes. But much more than that, what's critical here, changes that has a tremendous impact on the way we think, on the way we feel, on the way we behave, and in a nutshell, on the way we live collectively, the way we live together in groups, in societies, in organizations. That's the overload. That's where the overload is coming from, in a way. So here we are with some highlights on what I think is happening and some of the major changes that we as leaders must face one way or another, hopefully in the best possible way. Social. Yes, no problem. There is a major communication problems right now. There's a very strong evidence that we have not been very good as leaders at communicating the messages in terms of what's going on and what's happening. The messages were not quite clear, ambiguity again. The messages were full of contradiction. In one country, people were saying, this is what we have to do. In one country, they said the mask is absolutely critical. In some of the countries and other groups, they said, no, it's not. It's like the testing thing, and so on and so forth. And people got lost. And not only just got lost, but they got also very, very unhappy and mad. And that led to a major trust issue. A major trust issue, in the sense that, you know, trust is based on what? On credibility and reliability. Credibility is, I believe when you talk. Reliability, what you said you're going to do, not only you're going to do it, but it's going to be effective. And look at what's happening. Many leaders, I'm not blaming them. It's not easy. It's not a very easy situation. But what I'm just saying is that leaders must pay attention, must care more about the trust issue, the trust challenge. You go around with a mask. What does it mean to have a mask? You hide yourself. That's not very, very good for, you know, trusting each other, is it? There's also some mistakes that have been made, I think. I don't want to elaborate too much on this, but one is, for example, the use of some words such as social distance. This is wrong. It's wrong to call the separation between human beings 1 meter, 1.5 meters, social distance. Social distance, in terms of the common understanding, is that the distance between the different social groups, the distance between one group of workers, one group of employees, one group of the elite in the organization. That social distance is the distance between some groups within the society. That's not what we meant. That's not what we should have said. What we should have said basically is, well, physical distance between the human beings. I think that it's very dangerous to use words like social distance that have some very strong, very heavy meanings for many people around, consciously or unconsciously. No question also social that the redefinition of health is in the pipeline. We're going to have a good look at health. We're going to have to really have another approach to medicine and how we practice medicine. And I don't want to elaborate on that for one simple reason. I'm not an expert in the field, but I think there will be a strong need to review hospitals, medical doctors, and so on and so forth. And finally, the one I would like to stress out is old people. Oh, this crisis, this COVID-19 is sending a very strong signal to us that we have been, at least in some part of the world, especially in the western part of the world, we have been mistreating people who are over 55. And can you imagine, over 55, we're still saying to people, you're out now, go fishing. This is terrible. And not only we are saying you're out, you cannot contribute anymore at 55, but actually the life expectancy is what, 80, 85, even 90 now. Hold it. You're not going to spend the next 30 years of your life doing nothing and waiting for what? And just to go fishing maybe? No, please. So we are also learning something about the definition of being old. And when we see who has been penalized in a dramatic way with this in this situation, is basically the older people. They're not being treated maybe the right way. It was unexpected, yes, and that leads to maybe some question about how do we treat people, those people who are over 55 and still young and kicking. Next, economic. Yes, I don't want to go too deep into this one, but obviously there is a need to rethink the global market, the relocation of goods and services, global versus national. It's not either and or either or, it's either and, sorry. It's global and national approach, all right? Flexibility. It's quite amazing to see that some companies have been extremely good at taking advantage of the opportunity to get into businesses that they were not in before. Flexibility, speed in terms of adjusting yourself very quickly to what's going on and what's happening. And one thing, and more than that, but one thing I want to single out is work at home. Work at home, I think that's a strong learning too, that people can maybe do better at home. Not everybody, because some jobs are not quite, open to that idea, but also some people don't want to do it. However, we're going to have to explore the possibility to redefine job, to redefine work, and to use the new technologies to do it, to reinvent the way we work together. That is too political, all right? Democracy at stake. If you look at countries, they're more concerned about the future of the party, all right, political party, than the future of the society. This is terrible. There is also a credibility issue over there among the politicians, the public leaders, and there is a major problem in terms of competencies and corruption around, and that's, I don't want to go too deep into this one, but it's going to really have a tremendous impact on leadership. We cannot just go on with competencies not being present, and the corruption being very heavy among the politicians and among those people who have the power to determine the way we live together. Voila. I would like to conclude this short presentation before the question and answer session. I would like to conclude with a simple exercise. A simple exercise. I want to challenge you, everybody who is watching and listening, with a little exercise. And it's going to lead to something, I believe, very interesting. And here we go. Look at the screen. Look at what you see on the screen. You see two bottles, A and B. They are both open. In the bottle on the left, you have a bee. On the bottle on the right, you have a fly. You have a light on under each bottle. Both the bee and the fly are trying to get out. Be careful, because I'm going to challenge you with a very simple question. You have two bottles. They are open. You can see through. Bottle A, bottle B. On the bottle on the left, you have a bee. On the bottle on the right, you have a fly. They are both trying to get out. There is a light on under each bottle. Which one out of the bee or the fly will get out. Voting, please. I would like to get your voting, your decision. The bee or the fly, which one will get out first? Very interesting. Very interesting. So it seems there is a majority. Aha, a majority. Yes, almost 60% are saying that the bee will get out first. All right, let me debrief those. Let me give you the answer. The answer is very simple. The answer is very simple. The bee basically will die in the bottle. The fly will get out. Surprise, surprise, surprise. The bee won't be able to get out, will die in a bottle, and the fly will get out. Why? This is a scientific experiment. Why? Let me debrief this for you. Let me tell you why. I love this experiment. The bee, learning number one, the bee is too sophisticated. The bee has learned in a kind of a sophisticated way that to get out of a situation like that, you have to go to the light and then you survive, which is wrong, which is wrong. In other words, the learning here, the bee has not learned to unlearn. My dear friends, this is the kind of world that is going to require, the one that we're getting into, that is going to require some major questioning, some major challenging around the assumption that we have around what worked yesterday and is not working anymore today. So what I'm saying, we're going to have to learn how to unlearn, to get out, to get rid of what's not working anymore. How good are we in schools at teaching people, helping people learn to unlearn, to question their own learnings. Next, the fly will get out because the fly is less sophisticated. The fly will go dong, 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 and out. The fly will survive because the fly has basically a way to use trials and errors. The fly will go and will basically survive because the fly is not so sophisticated as the bee is. And the learning here is basically the following. There are times that to analyze, and analyze too much is not necessarily good. There are times you have to go the flyway. And the flyway is basically to go with your gut feelings, to go with your intuition. Go the flyway. Now, it's not that one, the bee way, is better than the other one, the flyway. Either and. There are times when we're going to have to go the bee way. There are times when you have to go the flyway. COVID-19 is forcing us to use the bee and the fly at the same time. At the same time. We cannot just say the lab will do the research and when we're ready, we'll go out with the treatment and the vaccine. No, we have to try out a few things without being sure. And maybe just by accident or by intuition, we'll get out of the situation. The bee and the fly. Let me go now to some conclusion, very briefly and quickly. We are facing, obviously, some major problems, all right, economic, social, and political challenges, and we have to keep in mind one more thing. And that more thing, that in this kind of situation they're in today, our survival is maybe at stake. Read that book. The last one to leave will switch off the lights. Maybe we'll disappear. It's maybe a strong signal we're getting that it's time to get our act together. That's the first one. We have to fight also, leaders have to fight the powerful forces that are pushing us back to business as usual. It cannot be, this is the high risk that we have, is to say when it's over, more or less over, it will never be over, I think. but it's to say, as leaders, that's okay now. Now we can go back to business, we can go back to the stock market, we can go back to speculation, we can go back to money, we can go back. No! The role of the leaders today will really to say, no, we cannot go back. We can use this experience and basically be better off. Thirdly, yes, and that's the conclusion of my presentation, we have to define the crisis as an opportunity to reinvent ourselves. And that's my last point here. And my friends, we have been smart without knowing maybe, but we've been smart and the timing is right. We have invented those new technologies, including artificial intelligence, that maybe can help us in a tremendous way to, well, to move forward with not only with our societies, but maybe with the species too. I'm going to stop here. That was my short lecture on COVID-19 and its impact on leadership. It's open now, Vladov, on a question and answer, and I would like to get a few questions. And for, let's say, 10 minutes, I would like to maybe react to your questions, make some comments maybe. All right. Question and answer. I would like to react quickly. I'd like the question, can you trust someone who doesn't know to lead you? To lead you, it depends on what you mean by to lead you, all right? If it's somebody who doesn't know what the problem is and somebody who doesn't know what the solution to the problem is, it's okay if that person is able to get the right expert, the right brains around, and is able to give the power to those people to solve the problem. That's what I call process leadership. Then you can trust that leader. He has the process leadership power. And that's absolutely critical, and it will be more and more critical in the future, I think. To reduce ambiguity, yes, but keep in mind, ambiguity is not bad in itself. Right? Ambiguity can be something good, actually. All right, let me go through the other questions. What about people management? Oh, it's going to change in a dramatic way with COVID-19. Right? How do you have those video conferences and so on? How do you impact people when you don't see them, when you don't see them face to face, when you don't get the so-called non-verbal signals, the body language and so on? It's going to have a tremendous impact. And what about those things in between, those technologies, including artificial intelligence in between? Right? I just read a book on chatbot, a robot, philosopher testing. Read it, it's by Chabot, C-H-A-B-O-T. Read it, it's a fantastic book, testing to see if a robot, an algorithm, can think in a philosophical way. It's brilliant, it's brilliant. C-H-A-T-B-O-T. Yes, I see a lot of leaders trying to connect on a deeper level with their employees. Yes, absolutely right. And that's also a major change that we're going to experience, that basically the working place is going to become more than a working place. It's going to become more and more in the future a place where people interact and where people interface and when people learn from each other. You see, I'm not going to say too much about this one, but I'm used to say that what's critical in communication among human beings, including at work, in organization, is not so much to understand each other, it's to invent each other, to have an impact on each other. A human brain that is not exposed to another human brain doesn't grow. We need the exposure to other human beings. Should we embrace COVID-19 situation as the new way of living rather than coming back in wave? And well, we don't have to embrace, we have to pay attention to the signals that we're getting from the crisis that we are, or the major problem that we face. We're talking about people dying, for God's sake. all right? And that's something we have to keep in mind. We have to listen to the signals. We cannot just say it's just the flu. It's going to go away. We cannot do that. And yet, believe me, my friend, there's a strong danger that some people, some leaders will push us back to the old ways. What about performance management from remote work? That's a major issue. That's a major issue. And what I have to say there is very simple. It's very simple. What's going to be critical is to have an agreement with people who are not living next to you, all right, who are in different parts of the world. And some people are already doing it, actually. All right, and you tell them, we agree on the objective. We agree that this is what we have to deliver in a way. And the way you do it, it's up to you. So people will be empowered on the process, and there will be an agreement on what we want to achieve together. And don't forget that if you give a chance to people to do what they're dying to do, then the sky is the limit. What do you think about the impact of tourism? Major change too, a major change, including, by the way, on the trust issue, right? But that's something that I guess some of the people, including airlines, leaders in the airlines industry, are going to have to explore. How are we going to manage the process or the change and survive and go beyond just the, just the euro and the dollar, just the economic side? We got into an unbalanced situation. The economic side, took over, and it's not necessarily the way we want to evolve. It's not necessarily the way we should evolve. That's a critical question that we have to ask ourselves right now. Another question, and then I think we're going to stop here. How is your point of view model of leader in the newly created situation? Yes, the leader should be able to. That's a good question. The leader must. Is not, it doesn't have to understand everything. The leader in the future is not going to have a good grasp of everything, to be on top of all the problems and all the dangers that you're facing in the organization. The leader of the future will be more and more a partner. But there's still a need for authority. There's still a need for power. There's still a need for somebody to make some decision. But that's what I call process leadership. And that's what we should elaborate more on maybe another time. Where to find the leadership just describing the politics? They're getting more and more populistic, nationalistic, COVID-19 require more global and that's what I mean. And that's a good conclusion, by the way. And that's what I meant by maybe we have to have a good look at democracy. I fully support the democratic principles. The government of people, by the people, for the people. But when you look at the implementation, when you look at the way we have implemented democratic system in different parts of the world, including in the United States of America, by the way, it's not working very well. So we have to keep the principle. I think we have to keep, as leaders, we have to keep the major trend there in terms of giving a fair chance to everybody to grow and be not only happy, but also be in a position to contribute. But the way it's working with the political system that we have, it seems that we must have a good diagnosis of what's working and not working, and maybe change a few things. Am I optimistic? It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy because we have been maybe too far with the system that we are experiencing right now. We'll see. That's leadership. Leadership is what? Leadership is to see tomorrow today. Leadership is to fight for what you believe in. Leadership is to see what other people don't see. My dear friends, wherever you are, I wish you all the very best. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you.